diner buzzed softly with the clinking of cutlery and the low hum of conversations. Clara Montenegro stood behind the counter, wiping down the surface, her hands moving on autopilot. With every task, she felt the weight of her mundane existence pressing down on her. The familiar scent of fried food mingled with the aroma of fresh coffee, but it did little to lighten her heart. Each day blended into the next, a grayscale portrait of routine. Tonight was different, though. A spark of excitement charged the air. George Alvarez was performing just a few blocks away, and the anticipation that electrified the crowd stirred something deep within Clara. She glanced at her friend, Fatima, who was practically bouncing on her feet. "You have to go, it'll be amazing," Fatima urged, the anticipation dancing in her eyes. Clara forced a smile, but inside, a familiar fear tightened around her. Ever since she was a child, George's songs had filled her world, melodies woven together with laughter and love from her mother. Yet, each encounter with his fame echoed old wounds, fears of rejection creeping into her consciousness. What did she, a shy waitress, have to do with someone like him? With a heavy sigh, she returned her gaze to the work at hand, trying to shake off the tangled emotions. The clock's slow tick signaled the end of her shift. As Clara stepped outside, the golden glow of the concert venue illuminated the streets, drawing people like moths to a flame. The excitement in the air clouds her heart. It felt alive, electric. Clara hesitated, her mind racing between longing and fear. Would she let her heart take a risk tonight? The hum of George's voice drifted toward her, beckoning her into a world she had only dared to dream about. Fatima's words echoed inside her head. "How you can't pass this up?" But Clara felt rooted to the ground, struggle evident in her eyes as she fought against deep-seated self-doubt. As the din of the crowd surged, Clara caught sight of George on stage. He stood tall, a beacon of confidence and talent, with the spotlight casting a warm glow around him. In that instant their eyes met. It was as if the chaos of the concert faded, distilling the world around them to just the two of them, connected by something unspoken. Then, with a smile that felt like destiny, George gestured toward her, his voice ringing out above the crowd. "Come on up here." His invitation sliced through the thick fog of her uncertainty, leaving her breathless. Caught somewhere between exhilaration and fear, Clara felt every nerve in her body come alive. This moment was everything she had yearned for, a chance to break free from the shadows. But could she really step into that light? As the crowd clamored for her to join him, Clara stood frozen, heart pounding, poised to choose between safety and the pulse of possibility. As the crowd roared around her, Clara's heart raced, caught in a tempest of conflicting emotions. She felt the heaviness of past hurts and the shadow of her own timid nature wrapping around her like a dense fog. The vibrant lights of the concert reflected off the faces in the crowd, illuminating their joy. But all Clara could see was her own history playing out like an old film reel in her mind. Flashes of her childhood invaded her thoughts, sun-drenched afternoons spent in her small living room, where her mother would pull out a faded old guitar and strum familiar melodies. Together, they would sing along to George's songs, their voices mingling, harmonizing like two notes in perfect sync. Clara would close her eyes, imagining a world where their life was filled with music and laughter, a stark contrast to the struggles they faced. Her mother's laughter would echo through the air, warm and inviting, as they created a bubble of happiness against the harsh outside world. But the music didn't always drown out the pain. Clara recalled the moment her bright world dimmed, a time when her insecurities began to claim her voice. She had been around 14, confident enough to join a school talent show. Clara stood backstage, clutching her guitar, anticipation buzzing in her veins. Yet, when it was her turn to perform, she faltered, the weight of expectation wrapping around her like a vice. Her voice trembled, barely making it to the audience. Laughter echoed in her ears, the sting of rejection biting deep as she fled the stage, tears stinging her eyes, and despair settling like a heavy shroud over her heart. In the aftermath, Clara struggled to find her footing. The shame that followed her like a shadow forged a barrier, one that kept her from sharing her love for music. With each passing day, she became increasingly aware of her silence in a world filled with sound. The memory faded as she returned to the present. Clara's gaze darted back to George on stage, a man she had idolized for so long, whose voice had soothed her during lonely nights. Yet that very man seemed akin to a distant star, radiating on a stage far removed from her own life. Caught between fear and longing, she couldn't decide whether to embrace the possibilities of connection or remain hidden from the world beyond the diner. Meanwhile, George Alvarez, in all his charisma and talent, wrestled with his own inner demons. Behind the glamour of fame, a sense of isolation lingered. Every note he played, every lyric he sang, held a piece of his soul, yet the emptiness of that spotlight echoed in his heart. George recalled moments from his own humble beginnings. Back when he played in small bars, pouring his heart into every performance, he felt connected to the audience. But as his fame grew, so did the loneliness. Late nights spent with strangers' faces, submerged in cocktails, blurred into a haze of superficial connections. He'd encountered many crowds, but with each passing day he felt less like himself, a mask donning the persona of a successful artist. One night, a wise old musician sat beside him on a bar stool, a stranger who would change his trajectory. "You know, kid," the man had begun, his voice gravelly but warm, "the best music comes from the cracks in a person's heart. It's what makes it real. Don't lose that." George nodded, the truth resting heavy in his chest. The old man's words lingered, planting seeds of thought about authenticity, a concept he had started to forget. Shifting memories led both Clara and George to realize how intertwined their destinies had become, each struggling with the same fears of being truly seen, yet acknowledging the whispers of possibility. Back at the concert, as the echo of George's voice filled the night, Clara stood poised between the confines of her history and the allure of a new path. For once, she wanted to reach across the chasm of doubt clinging to her. Suddenly, Fatima nudged her as they caught the familiar strains of Amar es Combatir, one of Clara's childhood favorites. "You know you could sing this with him, right?" Fatima's eyes sparkled with hope, but Clara's heart sank. "What if I mess up? What if he realizes I'm just me?" Clara mumbled, her breath hitching in her throat. Each word felt like a confession, a chink in her armor. Fatima took a step closer, her tone serious yet inviting. "Clara, this is your chance. You've lived in silence for too long. You're stronger than you think. Trust me." Clara's gaze fell back on the stage, where George continued to shine under the spotlight. As he sang his next song, she felt something stir inside her, a flicker of motivation igniting a long-buried desire. The warmth of his melodies wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, flooding her body with nostalgia and possibility. For the first time in years, Clara closed her eyes, allowing the music to wash over her, and in that moment she realized that perhaps the music hadn't merely been an escape, it was her identity, interwoven with threads of hope. As the chorus echoed into the night, Clara began to find her voice. The memory of her mother's laughter mingled with George's chords, mixing reassurances, gentle reminders that she was not just a bystander, she was part of the song, ready to find her place within it. With a newfound resolve, she watched George connect with the audience, and in that shared space Clara understood something profound. She wasn't alone in her struggle, nor was she without a path toward healing. As George's voice soared into the night, Clara felt the weight of fear dissolve, replaced by a fragile thread of courage knitting itself within her. Each note surged like a tide, washing over her with memories of joy and comfort, reminding her of the music that had once filled her life. For the first time in years, the memories felt vibrant and alive, igniting a long-buried desire nestled deep in her heart. "Clara, you have to go," Fatima urged, her excitement palpably infectious amidst the thrumming crowd drawn to the stage like moths to a flame. Clara felt her breath hitch at the idea of stepping forward. Doubts flooded her mind, each thought a tempest of insecurities, whispering their familiar refrain. "What if I mess up? What if he sees me and thinks I don't belong?" Clara murmured, her heart pounding as she scanned the audience. Fatima squeezed Clara's arm, grounding her fears with unwavering conviction. "You belong just like everyone else. This is your chance to show him who you are, to show yourself." Clara's thoughts drifted back to the carefree days of her childhood when she sang with abandon in the backyard, her mother's laughter echoing with each strum of the guitar. Memories washed over her, the sweet scent of gardenias drifting through the air, painting a world where she was free from judgment. Clara took a step forward, edging through the crowd, drawn closer by the rhythm of the music. With each beat, her hesitation began to unravel, leaving only a glimmer of hope. The stage loomed ahead, the lights dazzling against the night sky, illuminating her path towards something she had yearned for but had never dared to grasp. As the song's tempo slowed, George's gaze swept across the audience, the warmth in his smile radiating through the sea of faces. "Hey!" he called playfully, locking eyes with Clara. "You in the back! Come on up here!" Caught in the whirlwind of excitement, Clara stumbled forward, propelled by the collective energy of the crowd. The moment felt surreal as she leapt onto the stage, her heart racing. She was suspended in a world of sound, lights blinding but exhilarating. "What's your name?" George asked, his voice friendly and inviting, anchoring her as she stood on the brink of vulnerability. "Clara!" she shouted, a mixture of thrill and disbelief rushing through her. "Let's hear it for Clara, everyone," he announced, and the crowd erupted into applause, their cheers enveloping her like a warm embrace. Clara felt a rush of elation, feeding her newfound courage. "Do you know the words?" George inquired, hands poised over his guitar. "I think so," she breathed, uncertainty lingering in the corners of her mind. "Then let's do this," he exclaimed, strumming the opening chords of her favorite song. Clara felt the melody fill the air, a familiar warmth washing over her. As she joined in, it was as though time slowed, and Clara's insecurities began to dissolve, replaced with empowerment and harmony. With every word they sang together, Clara's spirit soared. The audience swayed, their energy a living tide carrying her along. In that shared space, she felt a sense of belonging she had long craved. They were all connected through the music, breaking down the walls of fear that had muted her voice for so long. As the song reached its climax, Clara felt a profound sense of release. Standing beside Jorge, she was no longer just the girl from the diner. She was part of something beautiful and entirely her own. The crowd's ecstatic laughter and cheers became a symphony of acceptance. When the song ended, the applause thundered through the air and Clara turned to George, breathless. "Thank you," she whispered, overwhelmed. "You're amazing, Clara," he replied, his eyes sparkling with genuine admiration. A sense of belonging swelled within her, a realization that she was not just singing, she was stepping into her truth. With that simple connection, Clara felt the shadows of her past begin to disperse. Here, under the stage lights, she was reborn. The music had freed her soul, allowing her to reclaim the parts of herself she had hidden for too long. In the cacophony of celebration, she felt proud to embrace her authenticity. This was her beginning, no longer eclipsed by doubt, but standing boldly in the glow of possibility. Clara inhaled deeply, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, the echoes of hope filling her heart with every note. As the applause waned and the music faded, Clara stood on stage enveloped by a rush of exhilaration. The crowd slowly dispersed around her, but she felt as if she remained suspended in that moment of triumph. She glanced at George, who was still radiating warmth after sharing such a profound experience. His presence was a balm against the shadows that had haunted her for years. "Let's hear it again for Clara," he called out, his voice confident and encouraging. The audience cheered once more, and Clara's heart swelled as she soaked in their adoration. With every cheer, the cocoon of doubt that had wrapped around her for so long began to fray, leaving behind an unmasked, hopeful version of herself. "Thank you," Clara said, turning to George with newfound boldness. "I can't believe I did that. I've wanted to sing with you since I was a kid." George chuckled, his laughter resonating with kindness. "You've got the gift, Clara. It's in your heart. Don't hesitate to share it with the world." In that moment, her vulnerability faded, replaced by a determination that felt like sunshine breaking through the clouds. The shadows of uncertainty that had once dimmed her spirit had evaporated, and Clara knew she had stepped onto the path of transformation. Soon enough, the concert ended, and Clara stepped off the stage with a skip in her step and the lingering echoes of applause ringing in her ears. The crowd had left, but inside the concert hall she held on to the feeling of connection forged in those minutes spent singing. It felt like freedom. Outside, the cool night air enveloped her like an embrace. Fatima rushed over, her face lit with delight. "Clara, you were spectacular." She lunged into a tight hug, and Clara squeezed back, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you for pushing me." Clara beamed, her smile infectious. "I always knew you had it in you. You just needed a little nudge," Fatima replied, her eyes sparkling with pride. As they spoke, Clara's mind raced with possibilities. She had sung with George Strait on stage. He was no longer an idol from afar, but had become an ally on her journey. The weight of her past seemed lighter now, the path before her clearer. She wanted to pursue music, to challenge herself further. But casting her eyes back toward her new reality, uncertainty crept in again. What if those old fears returned? What if she couldn't sustain the courage she felt at that moment? Before she could spiral into doubt, George approached them, his presence commanding attention once more. "Clara, you've got something special," he said earnestly, his sincerity radiant. "Why don't you come by tomorrow? I'd love to hear more of what you've been working on." Her heart lurched in her chest. "Really?" she asked, astonished. "Absolutely. Let's keep this going," he encouraged with a gentle smile, and Clara's disbelief melted into excitement. After exchanging contact information, Clara floated out of the venue with Fatima, her heart thrumming. She felt lighter, like a ship sailing toward uncharted horizons. As they walked, Fatima continued bursting with excitement, recounting the performance and all the moments she adored. Clara's laughter mingled with her friends, creating a warmth that swirled around them. "Tomorrow could change everything," Clara whispered, elation bubbling inside her. "It will, just think about it. Your first proper session with George Strait," Fatima exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. When they finally returned home, Clara struggled to sleep. Adrenaline surged through her veins. Each tick of the clock felt monumental as she replayed her evening. George's encouragement echoed in her mind, reverberating like a heartbeat. For the first time, she dared to imagine a future fueled by her love of music. Morning light crept through her window, painting the room with soft, golden hues. Clara rose early, excitement coursing through her. She couldn't shake the feeling that today could be life-altering. As she arrived at the studio, a modest space filled with an inviting air, an array of instruments caught her eye. Guitars hung on the walls like old friends waiting to be summoned. Her heart raced as she stepped inside, each note resonating within her. George was already there, casually strumming a guitar, his fingers lost in rhythmic bliss. "Good to see you, Clara. Ready to make some magic?" he called from across the room, his eyes twinkling with mischief. The warmth of his smile worked wonders on her nerves. "Ready as I'll ever be," Clara replied, feeling her apprehension slip away. They spent the next hours crafting music together, George guiding her and valuing her creativity, while Clara poured her soul into words and melodies, discovering the joy of collaboration. With every chord they strummed, Clara unearthed a piece of herself she thought she had lost forever. "Let's take a break," George suggested after an intense flurry of notes, his grin infectious. "You've got a lot to say, and it's beautiful. What inspires you?" Clara sat quietly, thinking back to those sun-soaked afternoons spent with her mother. It's the connection, the memories that music brings back. Each song is a story, a part of someone's life. George nodded thoughtfully. "And each song has the power to heal, like it has for you tonight." As the day wore on, Clara felt her fears retreating, replaced with a sense of purpose. The shadows that loomed over her past faded with each note they played. Whenever she faltered, George's gentle encouragement helped her navigate through the insecurities. By the end of the day, Clara stepped outside the studio, feeling as if she had emerged from a cocoon, vibrant and renewed. Stepping into the sunset, she embraced the warmth on her skin as hope illuminated her heart, the possibilities unfurling before her. With renewed strength and the echoes of music coursing through her veins, Clara understood one thing clearly. She was born to sing, to be part of a world woven by notes and melodies. This was just the beginning, and she was ready to embrace every moment of her rebirth. The days that followed Clara's transformative time in the studio flew by, each one a brushstroke in the vivid painting of her journey. With George's guidance, she delved deeper into her craft. Their sessions became a sanctuary, a space where vulnerability felt safe and creativity flourished. Filled with possibilities, the once dormant dreams of her youth began to awaken. Clara found herself back at the diner each morning, her routine steady, but her heartbeat racing with anticipation for each meeting with George. The clang of dishes and murmurs of conversation faded into the background as she focused on the music that pulsed within her. Each morning she arrived, carrying a notebook filled with lyrics, feverishly scribbling ideas and melodies that had exploded in her mind since that fateful concert. Fatima noticed her friend's newfound energy. "You seem different, Clara. There's a spark in your eyes. What's going on?" Clara smiled, the warmth inside her radiating outward. "I've been working with George Strait. He's been helping me write songs, and it feels incredible." Utter joy tinged with disbelief filled Fatima's face. "You're serious? This is amazing. I knew you had it in you." The anticipation bubbled over within Clara while she continued to explore her sound. The diner, with its familiarity, became a backdrop to her evolution, and soon she began experimenting with local open mic nights. With each performance, the nerves that once gripped her now transformed into exhilaration. Each round of applause felt like an affirmation that she truly belonged in this realm. One evening, as she prepped for an open mic night at the local bar, she watched fellow performers take the stage. Some sang with bright confidence, while others stumbled over their words, their rawness creating a bond with the audience. Clara felt an inexplicable connection to each artist who dared to share their story. She realized that each performance was less about perfection and more about authenticity, about sharing pieces of oneself with the world. Through those nights, George's encouragement resounded in her head like a comforting melody. "Just be yourself, Clara. Your story is what makes your music unique," he had said during one of their sessions. Finally, the time arrived for her to step onto the stage. The bar buzzed with eager patrons, the air thick with anticipation. When her name was called, Clara took a deep breath, centering herself in the moment. As she walked to the front, the lights dimmed, her heart pounding in harmony with the beating of the drum. "Tonight, I'd like to share a song I wrote," she began, her voice calm, yet resolute. The audience hushed, leaning in, ready to embrace her story. As the first notes sprang from her guitar, Clara felt the familiar rush of warmth engulf her. The lyrics flowed through her, stitched together with memories of her mother's laughter and the fleeting moments that had led her here. As she sang, her voice wove a tapestry of emotions, longing, love, and resilience. The room resonated with her authenticity. She projected every ounce of vulnerability into the notes, connecting with those around her. Clara finished to a thunderous applause, the effervescent cheers igniting a flood of joy within her. Flushed with exhilaration, Clara stepped off stage, and an infectious grin spread across her face. In that moment, she felt truly alive, anchored in her purpose and unafraid of what lay ahead. In the days that followed, George invited her to join him at a music festival touring the state. The prospect filled her with an exhilarating mix of excitement and apprehension. "You're ready for this, Clara, you'll shine," he assured her, noticing the flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Are you sure?" she replied, her voice barely disguising the tremor of uncertainty. "Absolutely," he smiled genuinely, his confidence wrapping around her like a reassuring hug. The night before the festival, Clara felt restless, her thoughts dancing wildly. The enormity of what lay ahead crept into her mind like fog swirling around her. What if she froze on stage? What if her voice faltered? She paced her room, repeating a calming mantra she had learned from George. Breathe in courage, exhale fear. With the dawn breaking, Clara packed her guitar and notebook, her heart racing at the thought of sharing her music on a larger stage. The festival was alive with anticipation, banners flapping in the breeze, and crowds gathering in front of the main stage. The sound of laughter and conversations blended with the vibrations of the music, creating a vibrant atmosphere. As Clara stood behind the curtains, waiting for her turn, she caught sight of George conversing with fellow musicians. He caught her eye and smiled brightly, offering an encouraging thumbs up. The gesture anchored her. She wasn't alone in this. The excitement thrumming in her veins reminded her of how far she had come. When her moment arrived, Clara took a deep breath, stepping into the light. The crowd surged with energy, their faces a sea of anticipation, and in an instant, Clara found her center. The first notes rang out, and the warmth of the stage embraced her. She poured her heart into every chord, her love for music illuminating each lyric she sang. The audience swayed and clapped along, their joy and encouragement lifting her spirit higher. Clara basked in the connection that flowed between them, a beautiful dance of shared vulnerability, where her story echoed through the hearts of those listening. As she concluded with a flourish, the crowd erupted into applause, and her heart swelled. The exhilaration of sharing her truth wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. This was her calling, her rebirth. After her performance, George rushed to her side, a wide grin across his face. "You did it, Clara. You were magnificent," he beamed, wrapping her in a tight hug. I can't believe it. Thank you for believing in me, Clara replied, disbelief and joy blending into a single emotion. Just promise me this isn't the last I'll see of you on stage. Keep pushing forward. There's so much more in you, he encouraged earnestly, his words sinking deep. And at that moment, beneath the glaring lights and applause, Clara realized that she was not just a dreamer anymore. She was a storyteller, a musician bound for greater journeys. The road ahead shimmered with possibility, illuminated by the connection she had forged through music. With renewed courage pulsating through her veins, Clara stepped into her destiny. She was ready to embrace the adventures that awaited her, one note at a time. As the music festival wrapped up, the excited atmosphere hung in the air, but Clara felt a shift within herself. She couldn't shake off the doubt that crept in like a shadow, whispering reminders of her past insecurities. What if this fleeting success was just a thin veneer, easily shattered? What if she couldn't maintain the momentum she had built? In the days that followed, although Clara was riding high on the wave of encouragement and support from George, uncertainty continued to loom over her like a storm cloud. The noise of applause from the festival still echoed in her ears, yet within the spaces of silence, questions filled her mind. How could she follow up such a triumphant performance? How would she manage to keep writing songs that resonated with others? The once fiery, motivational words from George began to feel like distant echoes, fading under the pressure of her mounting anxiety. I think I need to come up with something new, Clara confided to Fatima one afternoon at the diner as they indulged in coffee and pie. What if the songs I wrote were just a fluke? Fatima looked at her, eyes narrowing. You are not allowed to think like that. You've just begun to scratch the surface of your talent. Remember what George said. Every song is a part of your story. Just keep sharing it. Clara sighed, swirling her coffee, the steam clouding her vision. But what if my story isn't enough? What if I can't find the words to express what I want to say? Then write about that. Be honest about your fears. Vulnerability is where the best songs come from, Fatima replied, her voice steady, filled with the same believing instinct that had propelled Clara onto the stage in the first place. Taking Fatima's words to heart, Clara began the process of channeling her doubts into lyrics. At first they poured out with uneven clarity, jagged and raw, but with each line she allowed herself to embrace her honest feelings. She set up her guitar each evening on the porch, the sun dipping low and washing the sky in hues of orange and pink. The world fell silent around her as she strummed her guitar in sync with her thoughts, a harmony of newfound exploration. Soon enough stubborn determination saw her through. She penned down a series of new songs that encapsulated her journey, a blend of fears faced and dreams pursued. Clara poured her heart and soul onto the page, and for each song that emerged, an ember of hope ignited deeper within her. After weeks of honing her craft, Clara felt ready to showcase her new material. Rincon, a new venue downtown, had planned their first songwriters' night, and Clara decided to take a chance. As she signed up, a familiar thrill coursed through her veins, alternated by the gnawing fears that had stalked her for so long. George had reached out to offer his mentorship throughout this journey. How are you feeling about the performance, Clara? He asked in the studio a few days before the event, genuine concern lining his features. I'm excited but anxious. I'm worried it won't resonate with anyone, she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her doubts. Every song is a reflection of who you are at that moment. Authenticity will always shine through. Just remember, perform for yourself, not for others. With George's words swirling in her mind, Clara gathered strength, although the night of the performance saw her heart racing and palms sweaty. She stood amidst a small crowd, the dim lights glowing down on her as she prepared to take the stage. The host introduced her, and that familiar rush of adrenaline surged through her body, pulling her toward the spotlight. Clara took a deep breath as she stepped forward, gripping her guitar tightly. With just her presence, the small space in the venue felt electric, the lack of a barrier between herself and the audience pushing against her resistance. Hi everyone, I'm Clara, she began, the sound of her own voice surprising her with its steadiness. I'm excited to share some new songs tonight. The audience gathered their attention, a promise of support in the air. She began her set, allowing herself to explore not only the songs she had poured her heart into, but also the nuances of connection. She introduced each song, sharing bits of her story, the struggles, the triumphs, the moments of clarity she had found amidst life's chaos. The vulnerability sparked a connection, igniting quiet nods of understanding among the listeners. With each song that flowed from her lips, Clara saw their faces light up with recognition, mirroring her emotions as they were swept along in her journey. After finishing her final song, Clara closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the silence to wrap around her before the eruption of applause filled the room. She lingered in the moment, drinking in the feeling of acceptance and warmth emanating from the crowd. As she stepped off the stage, a group approached, the resonance of their excitement palpable. "You are amazing," one fan exclaimed. "Your songs are so relatable. They hit right in the feels." "Thank you. That means so much," Clara replied, her heart soaring at the validation that reverberated in their words. The more people expressed their appreciation for her music, the more Clara felt her fears begin to fade. It was clear she had tapped into something genuine. In that night filled with excitement, Clara spotted George across the room, pride radiating from his warm smile. He stepped forward, embracing her in a hug that solidified all that she had fought through to get to this point. "I told you, Clara. You brought the house down," he said, his voice vibrating with excitement. "Thank you for believing in me," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "I think I'm starting to believe in myself too." "Well, that's just the beginning. Make sure you keep writing and sharing. You're meant for great things," George encouraged, the truth of his words resonating deeply within her. As the night wound down and Clara prepared to head home, she felt a newfound clarity settling in her chest, silencing the doubts that had dogged her for so long. The path ahead would challenge her. There would be trials, a need for resilience, but she was ready to tackle it all. She had found her voice, and it was bright and true. Now, with hope illuminating her heart and a narrative unfolding before her, Clara stepped into a new chapter, a chapter where she would continue to weave her story through songs that sang of truth, resilience, and the unyielding spirit of a storyteller. With each passing day, Clara dove deeper into her craft, her thirst for growth unquenchable. She wasn't just writing songs, she was exploring life, embracing experiences to enrich her storytelling. Every note she played became a reflection of who she was and who she wanted to be. Weeks turned into months as Clara refined her skills, often collaborating with George. He encouraged her to write authentically. "Sometimes, the most powerful music comes from our most painful experiences," he shared thoughtfully. One rainy afternoon, Clara expressed her desire to write a song about loss. "I want to capture what it feels like," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her heart. George nodded, his expression shifting to one of understanding. "That's brave. Describe that loss. Get specific." Closing her eyes, Clara recalled memories of her mother, the laughter that once filled their home, and the silence that followed her passing. "It feels like a weight, like the world spins on while I'm standing still," she articulated, feeling a wave of catharsis. "Perfect," George encouraged. "Now let's bring that to life." As they worked together, Clara felt the knot of pain unraveling with each chord played. The music flowed like a river, filled with raw emotion, and she realized how much she needed to express these feelings. After completing the song, Clara couldn't hold back the tears. "I didn't know how important this was," she admitted, feeling a weight lift. "It's a beautiful tribute." "Your music has the power to heal, Clara," George replied, his words reinforcing her belief in the transformative nature of art. The following weeks saw Clara performing again, this time at a local charity event focused on mental health awareness. The intimate atmosphere felt different. The audience was present for connection and healing. As she approached the stage, her heart pounded, but the sense of purpose overwhelmed her nerves. "Hi everyone, I'm Clara," she began, her voice steady as she introduced her piece about loss. Clara let passion and vulnerability guide her, and as she sang, the audience hung on her every word. The message resonated, weaving a bridge of connection between their stories and hers. After her performance, the audience erupted in heartfelt applause. It was different this time. People stood, cheers echoed through the space, affirming the connection forged. Clara stepped back breathless and let the warmth of acceptance wash over her. As she mingled with attendees, one woman's gratitude resonated with her. "Your song helped me. I've lost someone too, and hearing that made me feel less alone," she said tearfully. Clara's heart swelled with gratitude, a profound recognition of music's ability to unify. At the back of the room, Clara spotted George, a proud smile on his face. "You were incredible tonight," he exclaimed, sweeping her into a hug. "I knew you had it in you." "Thank you for your support, George. You've been my guiding light through all of this," Clara replied, the sincerity of their journey shimmering between them. "Always remember, you write your own story. I'm here to help you find the courage to share it," he reminded her. As they stood together, Clara beamed, feeling the clarity and purpose in her heart. The path ahead promised challenges, yet she was ready to embrace them. Her music was an authentic reflection of her journey, bearing the marks of resilience and growth. With newfound strength, Clara stepped into tomorrow, excited to weave her story into the fabric of life's realities. She was a storyteller, armed with songs that resonated with truth, determination, and the enduring spirit of connection. Each melody was just a note in a larger narrative, a beautiful unfolding journey through sound and life that she could not wait to share.